One of the things that also I talk about and I've read a lot about is the Vietnam War being very difficult from a leadership perspective for some leaders more than others, but because you had draftees and you had draftees, not just draftees that got drafted and, okay, I'm going to go do my duty, but draftees that got drafted that literally did not believe in what was happening and barely even believed in America as a country. How much of that did you see, and what was your leadership approach to those troops?
I saw zero of that. I mean, I don't know if I was just absolutely lucky. I know I'm not that naive. I mean,
I'll tell you, the last few guys I've been talking to and reading about this, and there's something that I've noticed a trend. So, have you heard the term millennials, about the new up and coming kids?
I know what millennials are.
So people complain about, and especially from a leadership perspective, people talk to me about, well, I've got my company and we've got these kids checking in. They're millennials. They're different. They're entitled. They don't want to work as hard. And I started thinking about in my head, well, basically you've got a workforce that's a little bit different. And this is very similar to the draftees in Vietnam who had a different attitude. And what I've found from good leaders is it didn't matter. It didn't matter that they had draftees. As a matter of fact, General Mukuyama, who I just talked about, when I asked him about draftees, he said, I didn't even know who was a draftee and who was a lifer. I couldn't tell the difference. And Colonel Hackworth wrote in his book, he wrote, I loved the draftees because they were straight shooters. They weren't trying to protect their career. They tell you what they thought, and you could take their input and you could do something good with it.
I've said all along, the soldiers I served with in 3 different wars got better, and they were all draftees. I mean, I didn't ever serve with an all-volunteer outfit. They were all, no matter where I was, they were draftees. And they all did their job. I mean, I've never had anybody tell me it wasn't their job, wasn't what they wanted to do. They just did it. And I don't know if that's leadership, or it was just the way it was. And they were all proud to be in our outfit. I mean, now, I'm sure other people later on, I mean, I've heard of people later on in Vietnam having real problems with drugs and all that kind of. We didn't have any of that. But now, fortunately, I left in 1967, so I'm not sure how things got worse, perhaps, but I think drugs are an issue, period. But I don't know. I didn't have any of that kind of a problem. And as I said earlier, I'm not naive. I believe in knowing exactly what's going on. And the way you find out is walk around and talk to people. You don't sit in your tent or in your helicopter. You got to go down and talk to the guy on the ground and find out what the hell's going on. And that's, there's a fellow who wrote a book. His name was Peters. This is many years later. And he wrote the book. It's called Management by Walking Around. And there's a guy made a fortune just doing what I used to do. I mean, it's scary. But I mean, it's true. That's what leadership is all about, is find out what's going on, and then using some common sense to tell people this is what you're supposed to do, or give them some guidance. But I mean, people who used to tell me, well, you know how to do things because you can order people to do things. And I'm saying, let me tell you something. Ordering a guy to get out of a tank to fix the track when somebody's shooting at you is not anybody willing to just do it. He's going to do it because he knows if he don't get the track fixed, we're going to get our ass killed. I mean, we're going to get going. He's going to do it because that's his job. And if that may be leadership, but I'll tell you, it's discipline that comes from people being trained right and taught right and treated right. If you don't treat people right, they deserve to treat you wrong. And I'm a great believer in treating people the right way.
Well, I'm just from hearing you talk about treating people the right way and listening to people. You say when I told people to do stuff, they did it. Well, yeah, that's because you treated them well, you listened to them, you had those relationships with your troops, and that's what makes people, like you said, when you got to have somebody that's gonna go out and fix a track under fire. Well, that's somebody they're not going to do that just because you order them to do it. You better have some relationships. You better have treated them well, and they must understand the why on the mission as to, like, hey, why this is important.